And I think Mr. Hall is correct. A court can look at this case from the standpoint of
This case takes a dramatic turn when the judge does something you don't often see at this stage. She openly questions the credibility of the alleged victim. What began as a testimony that seemed consistent slowly unravels under cross-examination. Contradictions surface, timelines shift, key details don't match earlier statements. And now the court must decide, is there enough credible evidence to...
leaving all of these, uh, and I'm going to call them discrepancies because I think that they are, making them issues of fact, or court can do it. One of the things that the court looked at is that while typically where credibility is not close, the court will leave that to the finder of fact. Where there are certain issues regarding credibility, it can get to a point that the court can take that into consideration as to whether or not to bind over. What is problematic for the court in viewing all of this, and I will say that Ms. Kelly started out very credible in terms of what she was saying, in terms of the story that she laid out. However, at a certain point, and some of it coming during cross-examination, some of it coming during the court's questioning of her, it didn't make sense with what she had testified to earlier, such as the statements in between her statements of don't want to do this, and then the stop. These are certainly difficult cases when one is looking at them, because not as though this is a stranger situation. This is two people who have engaged in consensual activities before. But in making these decisions, the court doesn't leave behind its common sense in terms of ruling on these as to whether or not there's probable cause. One of the things, well, there are a number of different things that are inconsistent regarding her, and I'll point out some of them. Her testimony. The first one I've already pointed out, between what she says while this is going on and what supposedly he says, and whether or not that even matches what he said as she's leaving and they hug, and he makes a statement, according to her, that I didn't hear you, which is actually consistent with what her original statement was. Then her testimony, according to the court's notes, her testimony changes in that regard. There's also, with reference to reporting, and this gets into a very difficult thing, but I think it's important to point out that yes, there can be delays in reporting, but typically in those situations, an alleged victim may have told somebody, but then doesn't ultimately get to the issue of reporting. This one is different, quite frankly, in a lot of ways than the court has seen before, because
At this point, the judge is carefully walking through the inconsistencies, the delayed reporting, the missing details in the police report, and the shift in how the second encounter is described. What stands out most is how the testimony evolves under questioning. In cases like this, credibility is everything. And when credibility becomes shaky, the entire foundation of probable cause starts to see.
There's the reporting, I guess the initial reporting to someone, which occurs a year after, not unusual. But then the report to the police occurs approximately 2 years after that, no indication of anything happening in between, no indication of anything along those lines. And it may be a circumstance where she just may have made up her mind to do it at that point in time. But that, I will say, for the court is a bit problematic. But it's even more problematic, and what compounds that part being problematic is that there are parts of the report then to the police that are wholly missing, such as the report to the sister, missing, according to the testimony here, not told about it, not told, at least not reported to the police, about the defendants and Ms. Kelly's interaction 2 weeks after that point. Not mentioned here. I also take note that until it was clarified by Mr. Hall, she viewed that second incident as an assault upon her until she's put forth to her that she's the one that initially is the aggressor, and then ultimately doesn't deny that. But then she begins, and I don't think she's not an intelligent young lady, she begins to then describe it without any prompting as them fighting as opposed to this second assault. So I listened to all of this, and I'm going to do it this way. I am going to decline bind over. I don't believe that the people have sustained their burden in terms of, I don't believe that there is, given her testimony, that there is credible enough evidence that this court should say to this defendant that they should go forth and have to stand trial. Therefore, this case is dismissed. The defendant is free.
In the end, the judge makes it clear the burden was not met. Without sufficiently credible evidence, there will be no trial. The case is dismissed. This ruling reminds us that in court, consistency matters, timelines matter, and the standard of proof matters. Whether you agree or disagree, this decision shows how critical credibility is in the justice system. If you found this breakdown insight,